You know, occasionally we hear about content creators here on YouTube who have to take a break, step away from social media for a minute, go on a hiatus because they're feeling burnt out, and that's going to work best for them. And although I completely support that decision, you got to do whatever you need to for your own, health and well-being. If we're trying to avoid that burnout, how might we go about doing so? All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Varsity Overland channel, and in today's video we're going to go through 5 tips that you can use to help avoid burnout as an Overland content creator. Now, of course, these 5 tips could be applied to any form of content creator, but this is primarily an Overland content channel, so I'm going to cater more towards the Overland adventures, the camping, and the off-road side of my videos. So this video is kind of meant to address what are some things that we can do to help make this a little bit more enjoyable, because after all, you probably started your whole Overland content creation journey because you really enjoyed, being out there, off-roading, camping, and just kind of using your vehicle to explore the world. So how can we lean a little bit more into the enjoyable aspect so that the other pieces that feel a little bit more like work aren't necessarily that much like work? So in no particular order, I'm going to go through these 5 steps, and in reality I'd say they're in no particular order, but the 5th one, the last one, is definitely, I would think, the most important, and I'm kind of saving that for the end. So tip number 1 to avoid burnout, I would recommend set realistic goals for your channel, for your content. Set a realistic timeline. Last year I ended up experimenting. I tried to do 1 video a week, and this was after having my channel for close to 2 years already. So I tried that, and I ended up doing it for, I think it was something like 32 or 33 weeks in a row. And I figured out that it was possible. Yes, I could do it, but it was a lot of work. Some weeks were easier than others. Some videos were shorter, some videos were longer, but it was a lot of work. So if you're going to set a goal, make sure that it is attainable, and be flexible with your goal. Give yourself some grace. If you start to fall short, don't get discouraged and just give up. You can always alter your goal. I would also recommend setting a goal that does not have anything to do with things that are out of your control. You can control how often you release your videos. You can't control how many views those videos get and how many subscribers your channel gets. So if you're starting out with your new channel and you hope to hit, I don't know, X amount of subscribers after a few months or after a year, that's not necessarily in your control. So you're setting yourself up almost for failure because you really don't have any way to control that goal. Or if you're someone who already has a channel, you've had a channel for a long time, don't use the analytics and don't use the subscriber count as a goal, because things fluctuate a lot. A lot of that stuff, especially with the algorithm, a lot of that stuff is out of your control. So just be realistic about that. You won't get discouraged, and hopefully you won't get burned out. But speaking of analytics, that carries into my 2nd tip. So tip number 2 to avoid burnout is don't get too focused on your analytics, and don't get too focused on your money and whether or not your videos are generating any revenue. Remember why you started. You started doing this filming, content creation stuff because you enjoyed it. At least I hope so, right? Or you enjoyed driving your vehicle to remote locations or camping or whatever, right? You enjoyed it, so focus on that part that you enjoyed, and don't let analytics, discourage you from your journey, so to speak. Don't go into your analytics page and notice that, you're not getting any revenue and you're not getting any views, and let that kind of ruin the whole experience. Okay, I actually released a video. My most recent video was a video that I put together regarding my trip to Maine with some friends, and I made that video using a song that I know ruined my ability to monetize the video, and I did that on purpose because I just wanted to have fun making the video. I just wanted to use a catchy tune, throw it in the background, put together a 5-minute video and just enjoy it. And I actually loved making that video. And I know that I will never make any money from that video because I didn't purchase the rights to the song. I don't plan to. And if I ever turned on the monetizing, function, it would just get copyrighted and get flagged, and maybe it would get taken down or something. So as long as I don't plan on monetizing that video, it's not going to cause a problem. I can leave it up on YouTube. But it was the creative piece of it that I really loved. Sometimes you just got to do something because you enjoy it. Do not focus on the analytics. So moving on to tip number 3, kind of moving into that area of being discouraged by things, is how often you have to come up with ideas for your videos. And sometimes, that creativity side can be a little discouraging when you feel like you need to rush to get your video out, but you can't think about what your video topic should be. And I'm waving around my journal right here. So I'd recommend getting something like an idea journal, or at least like a space where you can write down your ideas. It doesn't have to literally be a journal, but I use a journal notebook kind of a thing for a lot of my ideas, because you never know when you're going to come up with an idea. If you're anything like me, you think about this stuff 24/7. Anything related to my truck, camping, adventurous locations, whatever, like I'm always thinking about it. So you got to have something where you can write down your ideas so that when it comes time to make a video, like when you actually find space in your schedule to put together your video, you don't have to then sit down and wonder, what am I going to make my video about? I normally use the journal. Sometimes I'll also just jot down notes in my phone. So most phones have like a little notepad app, so you can always put them there. But sometimes I'll come up with an idea late at night when I'm laying in bed. Sometimes I'll have an idea while I'm at work. Sometimes I'll have an idea while I'm on a different adventure already filming for a different video, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I'll be like, oh, you know what? That reminds me, I should make a video about, XYZ, and I'll write it in my journal. So I would recommend finding somewhere where you can log those ideas so that when it comes time, you already have a list of things to choose from, and you don't get discouraged about flexing your creativity muscles and coming up with something right there on the spot. Now, moving on to tip number 4, and this might apply to someone who's already had their channel for a little while, or they've already had their social media content for a little while. It's okay to say no. And what I mean by that is, once you kind of get stretched for content and you're searching to get it any way you can, it can be really tempting to say yes to every opportunity. If you've already had your channel for a while, you've already generated some content, it's very possible that some companies who create products for your overland adventures might reach out to you. And it is okay to say no when they reach out to you. So every once in a while, I'll get a message from a company, either through Instagram, through YouTube, sometimes even through email. And a company will say something like, hey, we watched, this video, noticed that you weren't satisfied with, let's say, my awning, for example. We have an awning, we'd like you to test it. Don't feel like you have to say yes. I mean, the initial feeling is like, ooh, free stuff. Yeah, absolutely, send it to me. But when you really boil it down, what you should do is look at your schedule, first of all, because a lot of times you have to fill out a contract with the company, and you have to cater to a specific timeline. They're going to want a certain number of videos or a certain number of photos in a certain length of time. You can't get a product and then wait 4 months before filming it and putting it on YouTube. So if a company reaches out to me and I look at my calendar and I'm like, I'm really not going to have a lot of time to dedicate 1,000% to this video, which you should be dedicating, all of your effort to a company video. If someone asks you to do something, you consider that work, right? So you dedicate everything you can to that. So it's going to be more than just like a couple minute video, So I'm like, I don't have time in my schedule for that. Or maybe you look into the product itself and you realize, after doing some investigation of the company or the components or the way it's mounted to your vehicle or whatever, you're like, that actually doesn't really work out with my setup. So don't just say yes right off the bat to free stuff. In fact, this past summer, I did turn down 3 opportunities to get either free products or heavily discounted products in order to review because either I didn't have time to do it or I didn't think it was going to work that well with my current setup. So you just got to be honest about that. When you accept all of those proposals, when you accept all that free stuff, you're also accepting work. Don't forget that. A lot of people kind of like get lost in the idea of just getting free things. It's in return for advertising. That's the whole point. You know, they recognize your value. You've got a channel, you've got content, maybe you've done a really good job, but when you sign a contract with someone, they're going to expect something in return that's more than just a quick little thing you threw together. So you got to put in the work. And if you're not going to be able to put in the work, don't accept it. And that just destroys all of the future stress that you might have. For me, if it's even questionable, I usually say, no, thank you. Or I say, let's talk in a month. Or let's talk in a certain period of time. Or, you know, like, let's continue this conversation. I can't say yes right now, but I'd really love to, you know, at least develop this relationship. And that's fine. All right, now, I did say the fifth tip was probably the one that I found to be most important. And here we are. The most important one that I would consider to avoid burnout within Overland content creation is go on your adventures, at least a couple, without bringing the camera. Remember why you started doing this in the first place. You know, at some point in time, you went on a camping trip, you went off-roading, you worked on your vehicle, whatever. At some point in your time, you did one of those things and loved it enough to think, I should video the next one and put it on YouTube. So sometimes, to avoid burnout, we have to return to that place where we were doing it simply for the fun of it. And it can be so restoring to do an adventure, even if it's for a night or two. Go on a quick camping trip, go on a trail ride with your buddies without hitting the record button and worrying how you're going to finagle the scenes together and make all the content into a video and when you're going to get it onto YouTube. All right, folks. Well, those are my 5 tips to hopefully avoid burnout as an Overland content creator. And like I said, a lot of this stuff could be applied to other versions of content creation, but I've got an Overland channel, so here we are talking about this stuff. If you disagree with anything, or if you feel like anything was more important or less important or whatever, you got to comment, leave it down below. Tell me what you think. Was any of this helpful? Don't forget to head on over to my channel and look at my education playlist that has a few other videos related to this topic about being an Overland influencer. Anyway, thank you for sticking around, everybody. I appreciate the view as always, and I will see you next time. Peace, people.